People listening to the Lennon tributes on radio, whether they're at home or in their automobiles, are being asked to open their doors and windows and let the music play to the outside world. Here in New York, that might be a little chilling today. And now we're going to switch back to the park and the band shell and Ernie Anastos.
Yes, Roger, we are remembering John Lennon today, and of course we want to remind you that this afternoon at 2 o'clock there will be a 10-minute silent prayer in the memory of John Lennon. There is a gentleman standing next to me, Sid Bernstein, who was really responsible back in 1964 for bringing the Beatles here to America, and he knows about John Lennon, and he wants to share some of those feelings and thoughts with us today. When was the last time you spoke to John?
I think it was early this past spring. We met on the street. The usual warm hello from John, hug. And he referred to Shea Stadium when he said, I saw the top of the mountain, as I felt when we did Shea together, and I saw the top of the mountain. And now here again, it's like being at the top of the mountain. So many, obviously hundreds of thousands of people here to shed one giant tear on the earth that holds his ashes. And let's hope that earth is nourished so that out of this comes some kindness, some caring, some more consideration for our fellow man, because that's what he wanted, and that's what he wants wherever he is. And so that by his passing, we pass through this world and make it a better place to live in. What's more important and what's more meaningful to make it just a little easier for ourselves and for the kids who follow us and our children and their children, to make this a better place to live in. I think that's why we're here.
You know, Sid, we've heard so many nice stories about John Lennon, what a sensitive man he was, and how he truly cared for what was going on in the world and around him. When you spoke to him, you felt this, you sensed it. What did he say to you? What words did he use?
He was a very kindly man, besides being one of the most unique artists of our time and one of the most creative forces of our time. He cared about the world. He and his wife took a position for peace when maybe it wasn't a popular thing to do, but they had the courage, he and his wife, to say, peace on earth, give peace a chance. And that philosophy, that lesson, that statement has to ring through the world. Let's give peace a chance, and that's what he was about. A peaceful man, a caring man.
I know that when you traveled with them in '64, or when you saw them in concert when they were on tour in 1964, you saw the crowds, you saw the emotion, you saw the feeling. And I sensed that when I was here today myself, and asked myself, why now? Why this? As you look out there, what are your thoughts?
It's reminiscent of the days of November '63, when we lost a beautiful man, a great young leader, political leader, the leader of our country. The kind of sadness that prevailed then is similar, or this sadness is similar, and to the same deep degree that the sadness we felt then, and when we felt when Martin Luther King was taken away from us, and when Robert Kennedy was taken away from us, and the way he was taken away from us. There's a need for us, and these kind of crises bring out the need for us to stand together, to be counted, and if we can make the world a better place, let's do it. Gun control is a very important issue on the minds of hundreds of thousands of these people. It's something that has to be dealt with.
Yes.
And in this city where we live and where he lived and chose to live and died, more police on the streets, no matter what the cost.
I said, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your words and your presence with us today to share in this moment. Thank you, Sid.
Thank you.
Sid Bernstein, and now we'll go back to you, Roger.
On one of his songs, Lennon takes a swipe at the idols of the '60s, singing, I don't believe in Kennedy, I don't believe in Elvis, I don't believe in Zimmerman. The Zimmerman referred to is the real name of the singer-songwriter Bobby Dylan. The two men owed a debt to each other. Lennon once said he wrote some of his lyrics in an obscure manner to imitate Dylan. For his part, Dylan said it was part of the Beatles who inspired him to abandon folk for rock. Through much of the 60s shaping John Lennon and the Beatles, and more than that, John Lennon shaping the 60s, guided by a generation over new ground. Joel Siegel has some reflections about Lennon and his music and his impact.
John thought of the name Beatles, and he'll tell you about it now. It means Beatles, doesn't it? You know, that's just a name. You know, like shoe. It means shoe.
The shoes.
The Beatles.
Ringo. Paul. George. John.
And it was their hair our parents were so worried about. The songs weren't by cigar-chomping cynics out of Tin Pan Alley. Elvis's were. The Beatles sang to us. They were part of us. That is a definition of folk music, and their music became the anthems of a generation. And our parents were worried about their hair. It's hard growing up. In the 60s through the 70s, the world seemed to conspire against us to make what has always been hard suddenly impossible. We watched our leaders tumble, kind and good men fall.
I have a dream.
Imagine there's no country, as John Lennon wrote. It isn't hard to do, nothing to kill or die for. Imagine all the people living in life in peace. And in their music, their sound, their spirit was a handle, a place another poet would call the still point of a turning world. The crowds, the screams, the shrieks, that was fun. The public Beatles, Beatlemania. But there is a very private Beatles all of us know. Sad and depressed, feeling absolutely isolated, we would drop a record on a turntable and listen alone. And just underneath the rock and roll, the Beatles sang of hope. There's a word synergy, which means that pieces put together somehow add up to more than they should. The Beatles proved that. Paul McCartney is a fine singer, a writer of great pop songs, but John Lennon was the artist, the man on the cutting edge, the man with a vision he described himself in 9 short words. All we are asking is give peace a chance. And he made that message become music, from Penny Lane through Strawberry Fields to Abbey Road. The Beatles broke up for 1,000 reasons. Some were John Lennon's. He said he wanted to leave the group 4 years before the breakup finally happened, to explore, to live, to move out of the hurricane's eye. We felt cheated. We were angry. We let ourselves forget that artists must be gauged on a separate standard. And John Lennon lived his life with his wife, Yoko Ono, their son, Sean. I saw them 2 years ago at the opening of the circus. A family exchanging numbers with an old friend who happened to be Mick Jagger. And Lennon, not terribly interested in his own solo career, was then 10 years away from the Beatles, 3 years away from any performing. And his sense of humor always flashing, he joked about it.
It's beautiful and it's exciting, and it's Sean's first time there.
How does he like the circus, you think?
How do you like the circus? I see.
He's so excited he can't say a word, you know.
He's got a little board applauding, you know.
What's your favorite part of the circus?
I like the clowns and the little dogs.
Would you give it all up to run away and join the circus?
I've already given it up. I haven't decided where to run, though.
The irony, of course, is that in the past few months, he had decided where to run. Back to music.
Our life together is so precious. Together we have grown.